Thank you for joining with me. I'm laughing because Little Bit is our loudest snorer, and she gets louder as I read, I think. We're at the prelude introduction to the series. This is the conclusion, and I'm picking up the reading. One can make a case for saying that these are the two most important themes in the entire text. And one is that A Course in Miracles is a non-dualistic thought system. And the first is that the Course is an undoing. Okay? Because it is the miracle that undoes the interference to our remembering that only heaven's love is real. Foreshadowing what I will be discussing in Chapter 1, the reason there is no order of difficulty in miracles is that nothing unreal exists. All our problems and concerns are part of the illusion, the ego's defensive strategy to keep us away from our only problem, the original mistake which the mind continues to make, of choosing the ego instead of the Holy Spirit. As I mentioned in the preface, I will not be going through the text line by line. Rather, I shall look at each chapter in terms of the various themes I briefly discussed here in the prelude, and how they facilitate the process of learning we find in the text. But before I embark on my commentary on the first chapter, I should like to make a few comments about the nature of the early scribing of Helen Schucman, roughly the first 4 chapters of the text as we now have them, too. For a more detailed account, the reader is referred to my Absence from Felicity, the story of Helen Schucman and her scribing of A Course in Miracles. The early scribing, style, editing, messages. Helen wrote down in shorthand what she heard and then dictated to William Thetford what she had written down. Bill's typing is what we referred to as the Urtext, a word derived from the German that is commonly used in reference to a literary work, designating its earliest draft. In the context of A Course in Miracles, the term denotes Bill's original typed manuscript based on Helen's shorthand notes. Helen retyped the text twice, and then there was the final version, though not the last, which was the version I saw when I met them, and which Helen and I edited into the finished copy, eventually printed in 1976. What Helen originally heard and wrote down in her notebooks, largely recorded in the Urtext, contained a great deal of personal material. In the early weeks of the scribing, Helen was quite nervous about what was happening, not primarily from what she was taking down, although that certainly made her uncomfortable, but more from the fact that it was coming from Jesus. The closeness of a relationship that was impossible for her to ignore at this point, since she was basically hearing his voice all the time. Her hearing during these early weeks, however, was not very good. To explain what I mean by that, consider rusty pipes. When you come back to your home after having been away for a long time, especially if it is an older home, the water faucet usually runs dirty for a while. Rust and other minerals have accumulated, and you need to run the water a while to wash out the impurities until the water is clean again. In one sense, this is what happened with Helen. She had not used this scribal ability for a long, long time, as expressed in the following vision that antedated the coming of the Course. In this experience, Helen found a piece of machinery in a rowboat that had been beached on shore. She described it as an ancient sending and receiving set, which when the Course later began, she understood to be a symbol of this ability to receive the messages from Jesus in her mind and then send them in terms of writing them down. In the vision, a stranger appeared from time to time, and after a while Helen recognized him as Jesus. At first he said to her, "Do not do anything with this yet, you are not ready." It was obvious that some internal preparation was necessary so that Helen would be able to hear as clearly and as purely as she later did. Yet this was not the case at the beginning. As a result, she wrote down things that were wrong, a number of which Jesus would later correct. The style of this early scribing was awkward and clumsy, and as I mentioned, interspersed with the teaching was a great deal of personal material that Jesus was giving to help Helen accept what was happening and to help her heal her relationship with Bill. There were messages for Bill and other messages that were an attempt to help them, not only with their own relationship, but with others as well. There also was material to help them bridge the gap between the conservative psychoanalytic psychology they both followed and the psychology of the Course, material on Freud, Jung, Rank, and other non-Freudians. In addition, there was discussion of mental illness and mental retardation, which was Helen's field. Bill was very much taken by Edgar Cayce, having started to read him when Helen began to have her internal experiences in the spring of 1965. He had Helen read Cayce and took her kicking and screaming to Virginia Beach to meet Hugh Lynn Cayce, Edgar's son. Thus, there is some Cayce material in the early pages, as well as clear evidences of the Cayce style. The brilliant teachings of the Cayce material come within an archaic and awkward form of writing, and in the early scribings there is evidence of that awkwardness in the Course's phraseology and terms. I'm going to stop there today. Thank you so much for joining with me. We will pick up here tomorrow, and I will see you then. I love you. Thank you.